This is the You Can Learn Chinese podcast. For everyone who's trying to learn Chinese or reaching for the next level, you came to the right place. I am your host, Jared Turner. And why is it that if you donate a kidney, people love you? But if you donate 5 kidneys, they call the police. My co-host is John Pasden, who's out for this episode and claims that one of these days he's going to stop procrastinating. In this episode, we have an interview with special guest Elijah Wilcott. Let's get to it.
My name is Elijah Wilcott. I'm a web developer living in South Carolina, but in a previous life, I was in China for a number of years. I went to school full-time over there, learned Chinese through that, and also using Chinese Pod and other tools. I kind of quit learning Chinese for a while, but then this podcast, You Can Learn Chinese, got me kind of going again.
Hey, sounds great. All right, Elijah, why did you start learning Chinese?
Well, it's kind of funny. I went to China because I could have this great international experience and I could just use English. I wouldn't have to learn the language. Now people thought, just be an English teacher.
Did you hear this from somebody?
Yeah.
Okay.
They said there's a huge demand for English teachers in China and you don't have to learn the language. You just go there and teach English and everybody wants to use English and it's great. So that's what I did.
Well, why did you decide to even go to China to teach English? Perhaps did you have other jobs or school or what was going on in your life at that time?
I was working as a photographer at the time and I had a real interest in China. I've heard people talk about it and some friends of mine were going over there and there was this nursing professor that I knew who had a program over there teaching nursing in English to students over there. And she was looking for English teachers. And I just kind of went to her office just to talk about it. And I left with my signature all over things. So off I went.
Wow. It's an effective recruiter right there. Huh?
Yeah.
So this lady was teaching nursing in English? Was she looking for someone to help with her program?
No, she was a nursing professor here in the US, but somehow she got involved with creating this joint program in China for a nursing program there. And so she was constantly flying back and forth and looking for teachers.
So it sounds like it was just right timing for you in your life and say, hey, let's go ahead and do this. So tell me about this. I guess you probably came home. Were you in college at the time? What was your situation?
I had just finished college.
Okay, gotcha.
Just finished college, didn't quite know what to do next. And this China's thing sounded really cool.
So you probably may talk to your parents like, I'm going to China. Like, what?
They thought I'd lost my mind.
So tell me about that experience then. What was that like getting ready to go to China?
Oh, wonderful. I loved it. So when I flew over, I remember kind of waking up at 3:00 in the morning, wondering what I had just done. But very quickly fell in love with it. I loved the food, loved the people. It was great. And the other teachers that I worked with were just amazing people. I had a great time. I worked that job for 2 years.
What city were you in?
I was in Shanghai.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, we started in Puxi and then the whole school moved way out near the Pudong airport the second year.
Mm-hmm.
And then I realized that I would be happy staying there for the rest of my life. And if I'm going to stay there the rest of my life, I better learn the language. And after 2 years there, I had learned 2 things. I had learned how to say, 宫保鸡丁打包. And I had learned how to count to 8. Not 10, I had learned how to count to 8. Because there was this recording they played on campus every day for these eye exercises. And it just went up to 8 and stopped there. And so I didn't know 9 or 10.
Okay, something like that.
Yeah. So then I decided to quit my job and go to school.
Oh, okay. So quit your job teaching English?
Mm-hmm. I did. Yeah.
And go to school to study what?
It's full time to study Chinese.
Oh, okay. All right.
I was in Shanghai at the time and I had a friend in northern China who was going to do the same thing. And he said, hey, come up to northern China. Changchun is a great place to learn Chinese. So I moved up there. And then funny thing, he changed his mind and left. So on my own, I started learning. Well, we had lots of mutual friends there too. So he introduced me to all his friends and they welcomed me in and he had a great time there too.
Well, Elijah, I want to hear a little bit more about this story about you when you were in Shanghai teaching English. Mm-hmm. So you said, okay, I really only learned these 2 phrases, 1 to 8. And then, I want gongji. I know it was Kung Pao chicken, right? To go, right? So what were some of those limitations? What were some of those hurdles for you and those barriers for you actually really saying, hey, I'm going to really get some language skills down here?
Well, eating was a big thing. Pointing at menus only goes so far. And I wanted to know what it was that I was eating. That was a big thing. Also, communication was always really difficult. I thought that if I just knew Chinese, I could overcome all these communication difficulties. Actually, turns out that was not the case. Yeah. Sometimes it just made it more confusing. But yeah, I wanted to be able to really talk to people, know what's going on around me. I just, never knew what was going on around me. So I really wanted to give it a try, and I had never been very successful learning Chinese, learning any language before. And I thought, I'm watching all these kids around me learn language, and I'm seeing all these college students with way better opportunities than I could make for myself learning English, and they're doing it. And I thought, if they can do it, maybe I can do it. So I wanted to give it a shot.
That's pretty insightful. But I'm also interested to know, like, during that time, though, you were in China for these 2 years, 2.5 years before you decided to go studying full time. What do you think limited you? Or what do you think were some of the reasons that you really didn't progress in your Chinese language skills during those times?
It's constantly surrounded by people who wanted to practice English, constantly, everywhere I went. I mean, it kind of got better the longer I stayed in China, but this was 2005, 2006. I show my face anywhere and I'm surrounded by people practicing English. So there was no need to learn Chinese really until I really needed it. And then it was like advanced Chinese that this situation was not helping me unless I already knew a lot.
So, all right, you went up to, was it Changchun, right?
Yep.
And that's Jilin province, is that right?
That's in Jilin, yep.
Okay, yeah. Been there. It's a cool city. What was it? Changchun. So, what's like long spring, but it's kind of a misnomer up there, right? It's
long winter.
There you go.
It would snow in October and you wouldn't see the sidewalk again until March.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. So maybe it should be like short summer or non-existent summer, something like that, right?
I remember there were ice cream salespeople who, in most places they have to push their ice cream around in a cart, a refrigerated cart. Well, they would just bring a cardboard box and set it down on the sidewalk and sell the ice cream that way. And people would buy it. I mean, it's 10 below zero and they're buying ice cream.
Interesting things about China, indeed. What was that experience like there in Changchun, going from Shanghai to Changchun and then trying to learn Chinese up there?
It was kind of rough at first. It was a difficult adjustment. The English level was much lower, which is what I wanted, but it also made life a little more difficult. I decided to live in my own apartment off campus, and my landlord was difficult, and I never quite knew what was going on there. I had some friends who helped me, though, but yeah, and then the weather, it was so cold, and it took me a while to figure out how to dress for it. School was very frustrating at the beginning, I'll admit that.
How so?
Well, my friend had found this program that he was going to go into, and so I just did what he was going to do, and it was this basically 1 or 2 year learn a little Chinese thing. And most of the people in the class were not serious. A lot of them were on a free scholarship from China to be in China. They didn't really care about learning Chinese. They were just there for free. Yeah, some interesting characters in my class. And my teacher saw that I was really serious, though. So she said, you need to try this other class. So she had me sit in on the undergraduate class where you were supposed to already be at like HSK 4 before you start. And I knew pretty much nothing. And I was completely confused, but said, yeah, this is what I want. So for that whole first year, every day when class was over, I'd lean over to someone and say, did she assign any homework? Because I had no idea.
So I'm assuming the class was entirely in Chinese.
Entirely in Chinese, mostly South Koreans, a few Japanese, and then a couple of Australians, one guy from the UK, one guy from America. So most of us did not speak the same language starting out.
So what was that experience like? Obviously, I get the idea that you felt constantly behind, not sure what's going on, but tell me how you progressed through this and how it went.
Yeah, my biggest problem is my memory. I started at age 29 and my memory was awful. I would have these tutors and I would tell them, I need to warn you up front, my memory is really bad. And they would giggle and say, oh, you're so humble. And then at the end of the lesson, they weren't saying I was humble anymore. They were, what are you even doing trying to learn this?
They're like, your memory is bad. Yes.
Yeah, you were right. Your memory is shot. So I had to spend tons and tons of time drilling stuff. I think that first year, I honestly didn't spend that much effort on school stuff. I spent all my time with Pleco and Chinese Pod and just spent like 6 hours a day just going over the same stuff over and over and over for that first year. Finally, I was able to kind of keep up with my class. Sophomore year, I was okay, still feeling like I was drowning. And then I remember my teacher warning us that she sees a lot of students when they hit their junior year, they just kind of coast and don't make any more progress. Well, I was so used to working my tail off that when I hit my junior year, I passed most of my class. I think by the time I was a senior, I think out of a class of about 20, I would say I was number 3 in the class.
Wow. And that's out of all the South Koreans and Japanese students.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, actually, the number one was Romanian. She was one of
Oh,
those
wow.
geniuses that never studied and you could keep up with her no matter what you did. She was one of those.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you made some significant progress during that
I
time.
did.
So I'm curious to know, you just mentioned here, hey, I spent a lot of time, doing Chinese pod and Playco, and then you were in class. So where do you really feel like you made the progress, or what was kind of the catalyst? And I know it's usually one thing, but was it this entire mix, or what do you really think it
Yeah.
was for you?
Yeah, it was a mix. I found that I needed just absolutely every kind of learning I could get my hands on in order to make progress. So I was writing characters by hand. That really helped me with my awful memory, remembering the characters. I was listening to, I think in terms of conversation, the most important thing I did was put Chinese pod dialogues on repeat. And so I
Hmm.
would listen to the same dialogue 3 times in a row in a playlist, and it would stay in my playlist until I'd heard it 100 times.
Literally 100 times?
Literally 100 times.
Wow.
I built all these smart playlists, and when it hit 100, it dropped off the list.
Wow.
And this is like the newbie dialogues, which are like super short. But I got those tones down that way that when I forget a tone, I think back to one of those Chinese pod dialogues and hear that voice in my head. Oh, okay, yeah, now I remember what tone that was.
Wow. When you say, hey, my memory's shot, I wasn't good, not good at remembering things, but it sounds
Mm.
like you were able to remember things. And I'm going to maybe make an inference here that as you progressed in the language, perhaps it didn't take as many repetitions before you started really acquiring it.
Yeah, I did that thing of each dialogue 100 times, maybe for the first year or two. And then after that, I didn't have to do it that much. I learned to pick things up faster. It was still slow. Chengyu still, oh my, they're still hard. My wife has to go over them over and over them before I finally remember those.
I think this is actually poignant because I'm kind of going to make an assumption here that perhaps it wasn't necessarily your memory was shot per se, or just maybe you're not good at memorizing things or remembering things, but that perhaps it was very so unfamiliar to you, the language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a memory for concepts. Like if I read a book, I can tell you all about the book. But then if you ask me the exact wording, it's like, that's not the kind of memory I have. And you need that kind of memory to learn language. So I read up on things I could do to help. And I remembered all that stuff and was able to implement it. Like I read this lengthy article about graduated interval recall. And so I incorporated that into my character learning, which revolutionized it. And I didn't have Anki back then. Yeah.
So it sounds a little bit like you just kind of continually drilling it into your head till
Mhm.
it finally stuck, right?
Yep. And then what I did with my class time, I was less interested in what I was learning in class than I was trying to use all the stuff I was learning on my own. So if I got a chance to use some of these things in conversation with the teacher, that was really helpful. And then class was really good for keeping my feet to the fire with characters. That was really what class was good for.
Maybe paint a picture for us, what that class is like, because I've heard a lot of different stories about university Chinese language programs in China with some mixed results. But maybe you
Yes.
could explain to us, like what that was like, and then also what your evaluation was and how helpful that was to you.
Yeah, it was definitely mixed. That's the right word. And it really depended a lot on the teacher. Partly it was the material, but mostly I felt it was the teacher. Like we had this one teacher, she pretty much just ignored the material. And she would just come in the classroom and write a word on the chalkboard and just chat with us about it and very patiently prompting us in ways that we could use it. And that was a phenomenal class, really helpful. Another good, helpful class. I had this really good teacher who taught listening. And this was 2007. He had a tape deck up on the desk and was playing these tapes. And he just made it so much fun. He made all these really hilarious jokes that just made it very entertaining. But then on the other spectrum, the worst class I have taken in my life was newspaper class.
Newspaper
It was
class.
horrible. Oh my.
Why is that? What made this class so bad?
It was from a 10-year-old textbook
Oh,
that were filled with articles that were official party kinds of news.
okay. So this is like 2007, you said?
Yeah.
2008? Okay,
So it's like from
this is
90s news articles
all right. Okay, 90s news articles from
about politics.
about Oh man. So Chinese 90s political news articles.
Right. And we were not taught any of the kinds of things you need to know to understand what in the world these words mean when you're reading them in that context. And each article had this huge list of 生词, all these new words. And I was already buried in new words from my other classes. There was no way I was going to learn those. And basically the teacher wanted us to be able to read it out loud, and that was it. That was all the teacher cared about. Make these sounds out loud and you're good. And the teacher could not understand why we were having such a hard time doing that. And most of us just checked out. I would say the Romanian was the only person who cared in that class. Everybody else just completely checked out.
Wow. I imagine as well, even in those, there's a whole host of proper nouns in those articles, which...
Oh, yeah.
Lots of curveballs.
Long strings of characters that turn out to be a name, rather, and you're trying to make sense of it, and it's a name.
Yeah, this is like a provincial party subcommittee name, right? You're like, what? 8 characters later, you're like, oh, okay, what?
And I was a print journalism minor when I went to school in America, so I knew how you're supposed to write an article. So I had all these expectations about how you're supposed to write the news. You're supposed to write for like 5th grade level, all the important information at the top, organize it so that it's less and less important as you go, so that you can just read the first paragraph and know everything you need to know. Well, this was not that at all, and it took me forever to figure out why these articles aren't making any sense.
So why do you think they were different?
I think it's, at least the book that I was using, the mentality of the authors was to make things as obtuse as possible. That like this is kind of a way of showing off your literary skill, to use the most obscure words you can come up with and make things as wordy as possible and hide the information deep, deep, deep in the article where only the really serious scholarly people will find it, kind of attitude. That's the only explanation I have for these articles. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, quite a departure, I think, from... But I imagine as well, media in China has changed. Perhaps.
Oh, yeah, it depends on what you're reading. Like later on, I came across, there is news articles out there where they actually try to let you know what's going on.
I imagine this was a very special subset selection, right?
Yeah. It was pre-selected political articles from the 90s. I mean...
Well, overall, how would you rate your experience there studying Chinese at a university in China?
When I started, my friend who got me into it said, if you do it their way, you won't make it. So I had that expectation going in. And I think he's right. If I didn't have these other tools I was using, I would not have made it, period. But I did benefit a lot from it because I decided I'm going to take this for what it's worth and just take advantage of the opportunity in every way that I can. And I was able to do that.
Well, you enrolled in this program, right? And I'm assuming perhaps you had some career aspirations afterwards. So what happened as you were coming up on graduation? And take me through this next step.
Well, okay, a monkey wrench in all of that was that I met somebody.
Met somebody, okay. On the street, I mean, in the class?
No. So in the summers, there was this English camp that I volunteered for. And so a bunch of people are foreigners teaching English, a bunch are Chinese learning English. And I met a girl there who I then, after the English camp, I knew a lot of Americans who wanted to learn Chinese, but they were surrounded by people who wanted to practice English. So I said, hey, I'll do a Chinese camp. So I got some people together and we organized this thing where we had 2 weeks of just immersion Chinese with these Americans. And I was at lunch with a bunch of people that I had done English camp with, and I got a message that made it clear I was short one Chinese teacher. So this girl next to me that I met at English camp said, hey, you want to be a Chinese teacher? And she said, sure. And we've been together ever since.
Wow. So you met her and you said, hey, come here, be a teacher. What was it about her participating in this camp that I guess made that connection between you two?
I don't know. She was just very friendly, always asking questions. She's very eager to learn. You got to be friends after a while. It was probably about 6 months later that I thought maybe she was interested in me. Turns out she wasn't. But I got interested in her just by that idea. And then we ended up, we were both in school, and we actually ended up getting married when we were seniors.
Oh, in this program, right?
Yeah.
So she was at the university studying as well?
She was at a different university studying automation.
Oh, okay.
And then I wanted to, obviously meet the parents. So we worked on trying to get a visitor visa for her to visit my parents. We couldn't get one. And they said, no, you guys need, they wouldn't. She's from Fujian, which apparently is, as soon as they see you're from Fujian, they don't want you to leave the country, apparently, because too many Fujian people go and open restaurants everywhere. Yeah, something like that. That's the story I was told.
Interesting.
So we completely changed plans and thought, you know what, we're going to work on immigration visa. We're going to work on having matching passports. And so that changed everything. What we ended up doing was actually, before coming to America, we spent a year back at the nursing school teaching Chinese to all those other teachers who never had a chance to learn Chinese because they were always teaching English.
Oh, interesting. Back in Shanghai, right?
Yeah. So we went back to Shanghai together and we stayed in the teacher's dormitory and we were their tutors. And then we also taught Chinese to students from Europe. That was just the best thing. I just love doing that. I'd love to do that again if I got the chance. There was a young couple there that we taught. They were nursing teachers and they were actually volunteering in an orphanage for kids with medical needs.
Oh.
And they went on, the husband especially, he went on to be really serious about his Chinese. And he went on to he runs that orphanage now.
Wow.
And I get to see what they're still doing there. It's really gratifying to know that I had a small part in that.
That's amazing. That's really neat. Sometimes I've had people who are curious about this. You're married now, your spouse is Chinese. What language do you use? You're communicating, you're talking, just your whatever in situations. And I imagine it can also depend a little bit, but maybe you could talk a bit about that.
Okay, so it used to be a mixture. We used to mix the two languages together quite a bit, just whatever was easiest. Whichever language was shorter for what we wanted to say, that's what we tended to use, just because of laziness. But we did try to use a lot of Chinese when the kids were younger.
Okay, kids, you have kids now.
Yeah,
okay, you're going to have to talk more about this. But before kids, pre-kids, how did this work out?
I think when we were in China, we did a lot of Chinese. When we came to America, I felt like I kind of needed to push her English a bit more. So I think we did a bit more English once we got here. But then kids came along and we tried to give the kids as much Chinese as we could. The oldest one, he was speaking pretty much just Chinese when he was small.
Mm-hmm.
But once he went to school, Chinese wasn't cool anymore.
Yes. It's kind of the story there.
And then the more difficult school becomes, the more they have to really focus on, doing well in school with English. My wife still she bought all these graded readers from China and has them read those. We've gone through tons of Mandarin Companion books with them.
Hey, I hear that's a great series.
They love those. It is. I wish I'd had those when I was a student. But yeah, our home now is mostly English, and it's a challenge to get us back into Chinese.
Well, Elijah, I'm interested in hearing a little bit now about how Chinese has impacted your life and how it's perhaps even playing a role now in your life and career as it is. Obviously, I doubt you would have ever met your wife without having, learning Chinese at this point. But what other ways has Chinese impacted you?
Yeah. So, obviously family is number one. That's obviously the most important thing to me. We would not have the relationship that we have if we didn't know each other's languages. We've seen couples who have tried it and either one of them knows both languages and the other one doesn't, or neither of them know it that well. We've seen that. And that's kind of sad to see the struggles they have. So obviously family is number one.
Both spouses don't really speak each other's languages very well. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I've seen one of those. The situation I'm actually thinking of is working pretty well. I don't know how, but they don't really speak each other's languages and they do fine. They use, the Bluetooth ear thing to talk to each other.
Really?
And they're older. They've both had past family experiences. I think they both had bad experiences of some kind. And they just get along really well and they're doing older life together. It's working for them.
That's very unique. So
it is.
I'm assuming, okay, one doesn't really speak English and one doesn't really speak Chinese.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Wow.
And we've known them now for several years and it seems to be working.
Wow. Have you ever come across any other relationships of that nature?
No, the only one I've seen
like
that. We know of another relationship where neither of them learned each other's languages very well and have had troubles. And we've seen that more than once. We've seen that several times.
Gotcha. That's something that John and I have talked about a little bit on this podcast, just about how really learning the other person's language. Yeah, learning Chinese in this instance, because there's a lot of Chinese people who really learn to speak English quite well, but not a lot of people necessarily learn to speak Chinese well enough to really connect on that level. Mm-hmm. But if you don't really have a common medium of communication, whether it's English or Chinese or something like that, it's really hard to establish a depth of connection, especially in a relationship, where the spouse or, more of an intimate connection, right?
Yeah, so that's number one. Career-wise, that has played a factor too. When I came to America, the idea was that I would help with this China project thing. There were some people who wanted to start an international school in Shanghai, and they asked me to get involved. And so here in the U.S., I started getting involved, and then very quickly it fell apart. Shanghai changed some of the laws on how you can finance something like that. And so the money just fell through and that was it. It's like, oh, I need to very quickly find something else. So I fell back on something I had learned before. I had done video and photography before, so I got a job doing video, but I was bored out of my mind. I mean, it was a good job, good people, but not challenging. And so then a friend of mine said, hey, there is this factory in the neighboring city. It's a Chinese factory, and they're looking for somebody who knows Photoshop and Chinese. And I bet I was the only applicant.
No, sorry, was this a factory in China or US?
No, here in the US. It's in South Carolina. It's in Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Wow.
They make gravure printing cylinders, and I had no idea what that even was.
Oh, what is that? I don't know what that is either.
Yeah, it's a pretty old kind of printing technology, but it's still good for certain use cases where you take the image that you want to print and you engrave it on the surface of a metal cylinder. So I went there and worked 5 years, did customer service and worked with pre-press files. And because I was the bilingual guy, I got caught up in just about everything that was going on in the building.
No, was this because they were doing business in China or they have some Chinese owners or what?
Chinese owners.
Oh.
They have plants all over Asia, and they take files from their customers and engrave them on the surface of cylinders. They engrave it on the copper surface and then plate it with chrome and then make a test print and one cylinder for each color. So there's lots of cylinders for each print job and then send it to the customer.
So it's offset printing, right?
Yeah, offset is kind of our competition.
Oh, but will these fit into an offset printing process? But it's...
Yes, there are some. I've seen some presses that have a mixture. It'll have like other kinds of printing technology along the line, and then it might have one gravure station where they have one color that they want to put on that way. I don't understand the ins and outs, but for some reason there's a demand for that. It's for product packaging. So if you go to a gas station and see all those beverages like body armor, we did lots of body armor stuff, or GNC health products, things like that. So they have facilities all over Asia where they're doing this, and they wanted to expand in the US. And this neighboring city had a program for inviting foreign investment. So they bought some land, built the factory. And I think they kind of had the idea that they would just bring all their own staff over and staff it that way. But the US wants employment for US citizens. So they try to have like a balance of, half Chinese, half American. But of course, most of the Chinese factory people, they're factory people, they don't know English. Only the leadership knows English. And even the top guy didn't know English. His second in command knew English. And so they depended on me for a lot of things, including trying to deal with disputes between the Americans and the Chinese, which happened.
Yeah. Not that there would ever be any of those, right?
No. Taking care of the company cat, who was the company pest control.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All kinds of funny things like that you just don't experience anywhere else in work life in America.
Wow, that sounds like quite an experience.
Yep, I did that for 5 years. Toward the end of that, it was COVID and lockdowns, and I was still going to work every day, but nothing outside of work, and I was getting kind of bored with it, and what do I do next? And so then I started learning web development, so that's actually what I do now. Occasionally, I get to do a little bit of Chinese with that, but not much. We do have like a few web pages that are in Chinese. But then we also go to a Chinese church, and so that's all in Chinese. And so being able to understand what's going on there really helps.
Well, that's really neat. So I'm interested to hear a little bit about, overall your experience trying to raise your children. And I grasp that you're trying to raise them bilingually.
That's a stretch.
A stretch. Okay. All right.
We're trying to keep them to have exposure and know a little bit, but bilingual, no way. We gave up on that a long time ago.
Got it. Because I know one of the important things, especially if you're having a spouse, who's Chinese, being able to connect with her family and, whether it's her parents and extended relatives and things like that. Maybe you could talk a little bit about how your children and about their connection to her side of the family and maybe the impact of language and maybe having those skills or not, how that impacts that for you guys.
Yeah, that's an important thing that has gotten harder lately. When they were little, it was a lot easier. My kids we haven't been back to see them, the grandparents, in a long time, not since before COVID. But we spent a month there 2 times, and that was really helpful. The kids got really immersed in Chinese, were able to talk with their grandparents. Here in America, I've heard my kids get on WeChat and do video chats with their grandparents, and the older one, he'll just chat away in Chinese, and he does pretty well. The younger one has a harder time. Actually, with the younger one, the big breakthrough was during COVID. We had a spare bedroom and we were renting it out to this girl who was studying nursing from the nursing program I worked in. She was here getting an advanced degree in nursing, and she lived with us. And her mom came to visit for 3 weeks.
Oh.
And then everything got shut down, and she was with us for 9 months. And she didn't speak any English. So she would just, our little one who is so introverted and didn't want to do Chinese, she would just grab his hand and take him out on these long walks. And after about a month, he was speaking Chinese with her just fine. And so that was actually a big help for him to be able to then talk to his grandparents. And so that's mainly how they do it, is over WeChat with video.
Well, that's great to see that they have that interaction. So it sounds like they do have a level of Chinese.
They do.
That's great.
When they're pushed.
When they're pushed, right? But yeah, I think I recognize that one of the next challenges is really, building literacy, characters. That takes some more deliberate study and focus, right?
Yeah, the older one, he has taken off. We have all of these graded readers that my wife got from either Mandarin Companion or other graded readers she gets from China. And the older one, he'll read those out loud pretty well.
Wow.
The younger one, he struggles more.
That's true. Every kid's got their own personality.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, Elijah, looking back on your story and your experience, if you could go back and change anything on your path there, in your Chinese language learning path, what would you do differently and why?
I actually can't think of too many things I would do differently, just because the resources that are available now weren't around back then. I mean, that was my big challenge, just finding good resources. And I mean, it's the challenge still. I guess maybe one thing I would have tried to do is to get out of my shell more and get out and talk to people more. I'm very introverted, so I wanted to just do all this drilling on my own and then come out with perfect Chinese, and it just doesn't quite work that way.
Yeah, I get that. It's like, I just memorize the dictionary and then I'll be fluent, right? Well, what advice would you give to someone who is learning Chinese right now or even thinking about it?
Sometimes I've said that friends don't let friends learn Chinese. So I have actually literally talked somebody out of it. Basically, my thinking is, do you have a reason to learn it? Well, then learn it. Do you love it and want to learn it? Well, then learn it. But if you don't have either of those, it's not going to work too well. You need to have a solid reason, or you just really love it, or both. In terms of specific things that, I could say to people, I know there are some things I heard early on that really helped me. One was, there was this one girl in my class when I taught English, and her English was amazing. And I asked her what her secret was. And she said, I love doing impersonations. And so I started trying to do that. Like the stuff I was listening to, the recordings I was listening to, I would try to not repeat it, but actually do an impersonation of the person, like copy even the personality that was coming out in the recording. And I think that really helped with pronunciation and some other things. And then another piece of advice I heard was pick a movie that you like in the target language and watch it 20 times. And I did that. The one I picked was The Incredibles in Chinese.
Oh, yeah.
So I already knew The Incredibles, and the dubbed in Chinese version is great. And I saw it at least 20 times, and I've got most of it memorized.
Wow.
And now if I see it in English, it doesn't seem right.
That's not the right voice.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty cool. Those are all really great pieces of advice. I appreciate you sharing those. I definitely have to agree with that first point you're saying there, is that you need to have like your reason. That's something unifying aspect I found among pretty much anyone who's really learned Chinese to any level of proficiency, right? It's you need to have your reason to learn.
Yeah, but you don't need to have much ability. When I was in school in America, my worst classes were language classes. And that's why my parents thought I was crazy when I was going to go to China. And then they thought I'd really gone crazy when I wanted to learn Chinese, because my Spanish grades were horrible. So once I felt like I had that determination to do it, I tell people it's not that people say, oh, you must have some sort of skill for learning language. No, I'm just really stubborn. Stubbornness is your number one asset when you're learning language.
Well, Elijah, I really appreciate that, because there are those individuals who say, I'm just not good at languages. Well,
I wasn't.
Neither were you, right?
I was 2 years at the bottom of my class.
But here you are now. Started at the bottom, now we're here, right?
Yeah.
Well, Elijah, hey, really appreciate you taking this time to share your story and your experience with us and all our listeners. I think this has been insightful, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, my pleasure. This is an honor to be joining your podcast.
You have been listening to the You Can Learn Chinese podcast. My name is Jared Turner, co-founder of the Mandarin Companion Graded Reader Series. My co-host is John Pasden, co-founder of Mandarin Companion, founder of All Set Learning, the Chinese Grammar Wiki, and Sinosplice.com. If you love listening to this podcast, subscribe, take a moment, and text or message this episode to a friend or share it on social media. It really helps us to reach more people and keep this going. You can leave us a review on iTunes or reach out to us at mandarincompanion.com or find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. You can find our Chinese Graded Reader Series on Amazon, iBooks, Google Play, or wherever you find your books. Apologies to John Cena, we just ran out of time. The You Can Learn Chinese podcast is produced by myself, Jared Turner, and our editor is Jasper Chua. A special thanks to our special guest, Elijah Wilcott, and of course, thanks to my co-host, the man, the myth, the legend, John Pasden. See you next time.